And welcome back to Insert Game Show Name Here. I'm your host, Having HB, and let's introduce tonight's contestants. Tell me, what's your name, kid? Me? My name's... Actually, no one cares. Now, let's get started with the game. Start the timer. Okay. Riddle me this one, Batman. What is peak? Excuse me? Oh, too late, time's up. What? You didn't even give me enough time. Ooh, I'm sorry, but the answer I was looking for was obscure random FNAF animated series that cure my depression. Well, if he ain't gonna talk about that, I guess I will. You know what? I'm sick of it. I'm sick of people just ignoring amazing creations that desperately deserve attention. Well, desperately might be pushing it, but dude, there are so many things I enjoy that I wish people would just talk about already, or make videos on already, because they deserve it so much, and it baffles me that I can't find anything other than reaction videos on them. What am I ranting about this time, you ask? Well, I said it earlier, dude, were you not listening? Yep, obscure FNAF animated series. I love talking about these things. There's always so much love and passion put into them, and giving them a chance in the spotlight, recommending them all to you, really makes me feel happy. Plus, hopefully they'll eventually get the praise and attention they all deserve, so more people will talk about them, and then in turn give me more to watch. It's like a cycle, you see, we all benefit. Anyways, yeah, that's the intro. I'll be covering 3 amazing FNAF fan shows and discuss what I love about each one, while also giving a brief summary for each one as well. Without further delay, let's just get into this already. Now, first one on our list is... Wait a second. Yeah, so basically, I've already made a video talking about the interview before, but if I'm being completely honest, I don't really like my original video on it anymore, and I feel like I could have done a better job covering its topics and themes. But also, I really just want to yap more about it, and I guess 40 minutes wasn't enough for my baby brain, so here we are. The Interviewed is an ongoing series made by the creator J. Jims, and it follows the many animatronics of FNAF getting interviewed. I mean, what else did you expect? Each episode focuses on a different character entirely, in turn giving each their own time and spotlight. And this alone is already an amazing and fascinating concept for the show. But the interview takes it a step further and introduces to us so many new cool ideas. I mean, at first the story seems pretty tame when you first get into it. A random corporation captures and keeps prisoner all the possessed animatronics, including Afton, and keeps them all locked up for questioning and hopes they'll learn how they work. But then you're a couple episodes in and all of a sudden the animatronics are breaking loose from the facility, there's people creating robot bunny suits for the military now, and there's full-on civil wars going on between characters. On one side, you have those who follow Lefty and want to finally kill Afton to be put to rest. But on the other side, you have those who follow Golden Freddy and would rather torture him for eternity. And the cool thing is, neither one of them are really in the wrong. I mean, obviously the show makes Cassidy seem like the villain due to their sheer power and intimidation alone, which we will be talking about later, trust me. But we don't even know if Afton can be killed or not, and even if he could, that doesn't mean everyone will be set free once when it happens like Lefty said it would. It's genuinely all up in the air still, and I could never predict what's going to happen next. But before I get ahead of myself, let me organize my thoughts real quick. First of all, this show is absolutely beautiful, especially in later, more recent episodes. From everything to the camera angles, to the backgrounds, and even the characters themselves looking better than ever, this show continues to prove its quality with each new installment released. I mean, just look at this sunrise. Mwah! Chef's kiss. And that's not even to mention the excellent use of lighting to portray characters and symbolize their ulterior motives. Lots of animatronics in this show who are displayed as villains are commonly shrouded in darkness, with the only thing truly breaking through being the piercing glow of their white eyes. Not only is it just a really cool way to show who's on what side, but it's just really cool in general. Look how sinister the Phantoms look, and Golden Freddy absolutely steals the show when it comes to this trick. I swear, every shot they have fills me with so much dread, and I love it. All this alone already sells me on this show, because I love works that take advantage of their medium. But dude, I need to talk about these characters already. I need to talk about them already. The way this show takes concepts and ideas from the games and molds them into their characters is just so fascinating to me. Literally almost every character has history and motives that drive them, and it can all be traced back to subtle events in the games. A simple, more recent example of this is the characterization done for Innard. They're this loud, joke-cracking robot who constantly switches between personalities, and the reason for all of that is how they were made. As some of you might know, in the games, Innard is made up of all the funtime animatronics combining themselves in an attempt to look more human and escape to the real world. But in The Interviewed, Afton himself forced them to combine against their will, and ever since then, they've just been permanently bound to each other. It gets worse though when you take into consideration how much these guys hate each other. It's honestly pretty hilarious seeing them snap and argue with each other even though they share the same body, and just the way they switch between personalities in the middle of their conversations is just really charming in my opinion. But all this really does give Ennard a good reason to hate Afton. Not only was he the one who killed all of them, but he permanently shackled them together like this, forced to spend the rest of their days with others who they can't stand. That's such a cool motive and way to write a character, but trust me, it gets even cooler. Afton is obviously one of the main characters of this beautiful show, and I have to say, hands down, this is one of my favorite adaptations of the character. At this point in Afton's story though, he's become this frail old man who's moved on from his past. And just like the souls who possess the animatronics, all he wants now is to finally move on and die. Unfortunately for him though, no matter what may happen, somehow he always comes back, and you can tell he's sick of it. But when Lefty and the others suddenly get really close to actually achieving that, Afton almost looks excited, which is just such an interesting and fun level of depth added to his character. Though, don't think this sad, depressing version of Afton is some kind of pathetic pushover, cause there are moments in this show when Bro can get really intimidating. I mean, in one of the episodes, it literally opens up with him completely slaughtering an entire group of men trying to hunt him down. So you're really trying to have beef with this dude? And just his voice too. The way this man talks and the way this man laughs is so haunting, and he truly sounds like a madman who's done with life, especially during the time spent with Cassidy. Which, speaking of, OMG Cassidy. I need to talk about them already. I'm going to go ape, okay? This version of Golden Freddy is hands down one of my absolute favorite adaptations of this character. Heck, I'd argue one of my favorite adaptations of any video game character. This show makes Golden Freddy so unbelievably broken, it's not even funny. Like I said previously, Golden Freddy, or just Cassidy, is basically the leader of the group of animatronics who just want to torture Afton instead of kill them. Their spite and anger for this man is simply unmatched, and the reason for that is because in this universe, Cassidy was Afton's first ever victim. And it seems like the agony and pure anger sparked from that event directly translated to their abilities later in the show. Because they are strong. And you do not want to get on their bad side, because something as simple as a comment will just set them into a fiery rage. One of the most recognizable and memorable moments from this entire show is the first time Lefty and Cassidy had a discussion about what should be actually done with Afton. Cassidy claims that he doesn't deserve the sweet relief of death, and points out that death is exactly what he wants. And Lefty tries to give a rebuttal, saying that if he's kept alive, none of them can truly be set free, but Cassidy doesn't care. In the moment, they're too selfish and stubborn to care about any of the others at all, and it's clear they've made up their mind a long time ago. Their hatred has just become too strong. Lefty tries to reassure Cassidy that they understand how they're feeling, but before they can even finish what they're saying, this happens.
Is all this really worth it? I understand your anger, but...
If you did, you wouldn't be killing him so soon.
This is a short clip that isn't really much, but it just goes to show how much rage is built up within Cassidy. And later in the show, we get the absolute pleasure of seeing more and more examples of this power being used. Though, I have to say my favorite quality of this version of Golden Freddy is the way they talk. And no, I don't really mean the voice like I did with Afton, though their voice is good. But I mean just the way they talk down and mock others, make them feel like such a villain. And it leads to some of my favorite quotes from the entire series.
What do you want from me?
You are hurting, Mr. Afton. You're an open wound. And I am here to make you bleed. You are reliving your worst experiences, your nightmares, your hell, over and over and over again. You should know that this is simply a taste of your future experiences. It is my responsibility to ensure that the feelings you experience now shall prevail for the next many millennia. Or at least, until our star burns out. We shall see what happens then.
You can't break me.
But of course, one cannot break what has already been broken. Interesting. I was under the impression you had lost anything remotely resembling empathy or remorse. But for a moment, I saw sorrow. Fleeting, but noticeable.
I'm going to kill you, like I killed the rest of them.
That would be entertaining, I suppose. And fortunately for you, You have all the time in the world to plan this theoretical action. Stop meddling with what you don't understand. You have nothing to gain and everything to lose.
If you've gone this far through hearing me talk about this show, I highly recommend you go check it out, because there's still things I haven't even mentioned. But don't just leave yet, because there's still some pieces of work I really want to talk about. If you could go back in time, what would you do? What would you change, if anything? The next entry on our list is a film made by the creator Scopewad, I really hope I'm pronouncing that right, called Family Comes First. And bro, this movie is honestly so fascinating. Like, I'm surprised it's not talked about as much as it should be, because this thing is like downright chilling on your first watch. Fun fact actually, the way I first heard of Family Comes First was actually from people recommending it to me in my first The Interviewed video. So if it wasn't for these amazing goobers, I wouldn't be blessed with such a work of art. So let's just talk about it already. Family Comes First is a movie that takes place during the events of FNAF 6 Pizza Sim, and makes use of the characters you expect to be relevant in that point in time. Afton, the Scraps, and even Michael all find themselves lured to an old abandoned Fredbear's family diner. But interesting enough, in this universe, none of these characters are necessarily out to get one another, and are actually working together to finally move on. The only problem though is that Afton's son is missing, and none of them are willing to leave without him, not even Afton. Things get worse too when he begins to see strange phenomenons contorting the world around him, and is forced by some strange entity to re-experience his worst memories from his past. Afton even tries going to Old Man Consequences for help in the limbo between life and death, but the creature manages to follow him there too. Things come to a climax though when Afton finds out the very spirit inside Golden Freddy had been the one keeping his son from him the entire time as a last-ditch effort to torment their killer. Ultimately though, Afton manages to complete his mission and watches as his family and the close souls nearby all move on to their afterlife, while he is sent to his inevitable, eternal punishment down below. And the film makes sure to end on that somber note. Like I said, this is a beautiful work of art that I wish I could have seen sooner, because it 100% deserves more love. You can just feel the passion and creativity oozing from it when you watch it, and the way the creator took concepts and characters from the games and expanded and fleshed those ideas out more in unique and interesting ways just blows my mind. I do have some gripes with the film, but they're super small nitpicks, I promise. I just want to talk about them real quick so we can actually talk about the good stuff this film does. Okay, so for starters, this movie has zero voice acting, and every time dialogue is needed, text appears on screen in specific colors to represent the characters. It gets the job done, don't get me wrong, but I don't think it was the best decision for this film. Not only do I just not like reading a whole lot in general, but I genuinely feel like not having voice acting was a huge missed opportunity, preventing this film from being absolutely perfect. There are so many times where I just wish I could hear what these characters were feeling in the moment, and simply having text on screen just feels underwhelming, especially during the serious or scary moments. Now, that being said, I don't know if that was a stylistic choice, laziness, or even just the creator not having anyone to voice act, but I feel like my point still stands whatever the intentions were. It really is just a little boring, unfortunately. Secondly, and this kind of adds to my first nitpick partly, because a lot of this film is just boring in general. A lot of the time it just feels like nothing is happening in the story, because there's a lot of scenes that are just shots of characters moving around or environmental shots with nothing going on. And I understand this is to build up ambience and all that kind of junk, but I don't know dude, it just kind of drags on a bit, and the lack of voice acting during these moments doesn't really help. Now, that could just be a skill issue on my part for having such terminal brain rot and a destroyed attention span, but still, I feel like just cutting down a few of these scenes could have done wonders for the film and still provide the same feel it strives for just as well. But anyways, those are just a couple negatives I wanted to mention before I start talking about the actual positive stuff about this film, because although those may be true, I'd still say neither of those little problems completely ruined the film for me. Heck, I'd even argue that those kind of help emphasize the craziness of the rest of the film for me. So I really just want to start talking about all of that now, and I think the best aspect to focus on first is how the main character himself is handled throughout the movie. William Afton himself. If you could go back in time, what would you do? What would you change, if anything? This is a question that plagues Afton throughout the entire film. It's directly asked by a couple characters, but it's obvious Afton's journey throughout everything is directly based upon its questioning. Knowing what he has now, knowing what he's become, knowing all the pain he's caused, would he change anything if he could? Or was he doomed from the start? Allow me to give more context. As of making this video, it is widely unknown what caused Afton to become the mad scientist he's known as today. Never in the games is it ever specified what sparked his killing spree, and although there are some theories, none of them are necessarily confirmed or concrete. So when it came to explaining Afton's origins and family comes first, the movie ended up making its own explanation for it all. You see, in this universe, Afton and his partner Henry did in fact own their own restaurant together. But one day, when they saw the ghost of a common customer who was said to be dead, both of their lives changed. Henry was understandably horrified, but Afton was fascinated. That very experience is what sparked his future killings, and it's what made Afton begin to pursue the understanding of life itself in the first place. There's this really interesting moment when Afton talks about all this to Old Man Consequences, and during that we hear about the first time he had ever taken a life. He said himself that after it all happened, he decided to go see a movie for the first time, but he couldn't enjoy it at all due to being so caught up with what he had done. It happened so fast that he didn't even think about cleaning the blood off his hands and instead just sat there covered in it. This is such a chilling and sickening visual to think about, and it's such an amazing background for Afton as an actual human being behind these crimes. It just feels so genuine, like a man who's coming to grips with his actions and preparing himself to do it more and more. We all know what happens next. The souls of the victims come back to haunt him, he gets springlocked in his own murder suit, and eventually is burned alive at the end of FNAF 3. But throughout all of that torment, he never seems to die, and instead is forced to endure the torture and live throughout it all. Now, in the present day, the story of the Springtrap has become some kind of legend. Everyone knows about the murders and the man behind it all too, and it's gotten to the point of being so widely known that Afton's work has been adapted into a franchise of movies with merchandise and everything. What Afton once saw as his form of art was now becoming a joke to others, and the passion that was once behind it all was destroyed by those who were just looking for a quick buck. It really just meant nothing to him now. So the least he could do was finally help those he had misfortuned, before finally giving up and surrendering to his eternal punishment down below. This is just such a beautiful arc for Afton, okay? Yes, Afton is a terrible person, and yes, Afton deserves everything that he went through, but something about just seeing the passion die within a man is so sad, and the way it's handled is surprisingly great. Also, I didn't really mention it yet, but it's also nice seeing Afton make up with his family on this journey too. He reunites with Michael, he finally gives Elizabeth her own circus baby, and even the little time we got with his youngest son still, it really seemed like he was ashamed to not be joining them all in heaven. Though one question strangely seems to contradict all of that. Contradict everything, really. Like I said previously, Afton is commonly asked the question throughout the entire film whether or not he'd change anything if he could go back in time. But strangely enough, he always says no. Even through the torture, even through the burning, even through the deterioration of his art, even knowing all of it would become meaningless to him, for some strange reason, he always said no. He wouldn't change anything. There's a little detail I actually purposely forgot to mention about the ghost Henry and Afton had seen all that time ago. Before it left the restaurant, the man turned back and gave Afton a smile. A wide, lifeless smile, as if he knew what Afton was going to do. This makes him think, even if he had the power to go back, would it be enough to change his fate? Okay, wow, that was a lot. Hopefully by now you guys understand why I think this movie is an absolute masterpiece. It's honestly just so cool seeing the evolution of Afton's character, and that's not the only reason I love it. It's scary, it's unsettling, and it's not just Afton who gets the amazing attention they deserve. Trust me, this is a must watch, and once again, if you enjoyed hearing me rant about it all, then I highly recommend you all go support it yourself, because there's still a lot of things I have not talked about and I don't want to ruin for y'all. So please, go give it a shot. I highly recommend it. But now, I guess we have one more series to cover before the end of this video. The last two were really well made pieces of passion that took advantage of their ideas and characters from their inspiration, and I'm happy I got the chance to cover them both. But what series do I plan on finishing this entire video off on? What piece of fiction could possibly be worthy of ending such a fascinating dive into the underrated side of FNAF? Well, that series is... Special Strike and the special series in general has been actually something I've been planning on making a video on since the very beginning of my channel, and I'm happy I could finally get the chance to talk about it all with you, because it is so silly and so cool. So, for those of you who don't know, the special series is a collection of videos made by the creator of The Hottest Dog that originated as some simple haha funny meme videos centered around the celebration of holidays, hence naming them specials, and these things are about what you'd expect. Some of FNAF's most popular characters getting animated in the most silly and derpy ways, while also constantly being seen screaming outdated memes or vines that were funny at the time. It's a lot of chaos in the beginning, with it not really having any cohesion, but over time, strange things would happen in newer episodes that began to build up an overarching story, eventually leading to the first actual movie in the series, that being Special Strike. Special Strike is weird. It's silly, it's dumb, and to be honest, it's kinda just an Infinity War ripoff. But on the other hand, it's silly, it's dumb, and it's an Infinity War ripoff. What more could you possibly want? Now, to basically sum up everything that goes down in this video, basically Golden Freddy is sick and tired of living in a non-serious, joke-filled world, and knows that everyone's true purpose is to be scary. So, he decides to take things into his own hands and takes over the multiverse with his shadow army. Yeah, I don't know how that really makes sense as your next step after that, and also I don't think it ever explains how he discovers how to move through the multiverse, but I digress. He sends his army throughout the entire multiverse and begins imprisoning anyone he deems incorrect or weak, which includes the very characters from his own multiverse. But together they too travel between universes, save those who are in danger, and build up an army of their own to fight back against the Chief's plan. A rebellion of sorts. Oh, wait, no, we're not there yet, my bad. All this eventually comes to the film's climax when a massive battle commences between the two sides, and all chaos breaks loose. We've got characters like Cuphead flying around and shooting people, Bendy stomping on some bad guys, and heck, somehow even Godzilla got into the discussion. Though the movie quickly comes to an upsetting end with a massive unexpected explosion wiping out everyone who was fighting in the battle, and ultimately destroying both sides. Really? That's how it's all gonna end? Yeah. But luckily, a sequel was announced to be made that would hopefully end up tying up all the loose ends and properly end everything off on a better note. I can't wait for that. Jokes aside, I don't know how anyone kept up with this series as the episodes and teasers were coming out, because waiting 2 years for more content is crazy to me. I understand animation takes a lot of work and time, but I'm just so happy I got into the series later down the line after everything was already wrapped up. I don't think I'd ever be able to stay invested in something for that long, and for those of you who did, y'all are some troopers and I have some mad respect for you. But anyways, Special Strike Rebellion, the promised sequel to the series' first movie, eventually did release, making sure to not only explain the loose ends the original film left off on, but also expand on those ideas along with introducing many new key characters. Basically, to once again sum up this entire film, Golden Freddy apparently had many backup plans to everything in case they somehow lost the battle, and one of those plans he had set would turn his right-hand man, Shadow Bonnie, into a much stronger version of himself in case he died. Now, why he didn't make him like this from the beginning is beyond me, but I don't care. This guy is creepy and cool, and I really like his character, so I'm gonna yap about that. Now, Shadow Bonnie in his new form wants to bring back Golden Freddy from the dead as well, but in order to do that, he'd have to find and collect all of his fingers from his magic hand and return them back to his body. It sounds a lot more normal in the movie. Reading that out loud is a little weird. This movie's good, I swear. But anyways, even though there are still some survivors from the initial explosion who try to stop him, he inevitably collects all the fingers and brings back Golden Freddy from the dead. Which, for some reason, turns him into this. Once again, why did it take dying for this to happen? Those are your fingers, dude. Why is it that returning those fingers to you makes you all powerful, but having them initially does not? I don't understand this really. I feel like I missed something. But yeah, Goldie Boy's back and stronger than ever, so the few survivors of the rebellion actually go out and do the exact same thing from the first movie, and basically, once again, jump across the multiverse in search of people to help them in their fights. Cool, that's pretty neat. Except this time, it really has no point, because all of a sudden, Glitchtrap kind of just shows up, takes all his godlike powers, turns into a big bug, then dips. Oh, sorry, was that confusing to you? My bad, I guess I forgot to mention Glitchtrap. Yeah, so these guys kind of get introduced in this very movie, and they're basically like the puppet masters of this world, pulling the strings since the very beginning. They all work for this funny looking guy named literally The End, believe it or not, and enact all of his wishes, making sure everything is as intended. Although this is a cool concept for the movie, I personally don't think it fits too well, because it really just makes everything feel cramped in the story compartments. There's just too much going on. The reason they were added in the first place is because they were originally considered to be the villains of the third movie, Special Strike: The Final Strike, but ultimately the idea was cancelled due to the hottest dog actually wanting to have a life, which is fair. Although he still really liked their concept, so we kinda just shoved them in and made it work. Does it kinda make everything a bit more confusing? Yes, but at the end of the day, you're watching Special Strike. Are you really coming here for a normal story? Anyways, the movie comes to an end with The End resetting everything and creating a whole new world for everyone to exist in, and you know what? That's pretty cool. Now, I know what you're thinking, and I get it. Sure, this show isn't the best. It's got text-to-speech voices instead of actual voice acting, it's full of unfunny memes and vines, and it's got the goofiest story ever, but honestly, I really like it. Now, it's nowhere near as good as The Interviewed or Family Comes First, but it has just as much charm and passion put into it as they do, so I can't just not love it. Works like these all deserve so much support, and I'm happy I can do whatever I can to actually appreciate all the effort that's put into them. So, if you're one of the creators who've made these amazing works, thank you. Genuinely thank you for all you've done. And if you're just an average viewer who hasn't actually seen any of these before, please go check them out. If not for me, do it for them. Do it to support the most underrated side of FNAF.